Well, good morning, everyone. We would like to welcome you to the Procurement Technical Assistance Center's business outreach today. It's going to be our last outreach for 2020, but we have saved the best for last, and our focus today is on Hill Air Force Base and the small business programs. And before I introduce our presenter and guest, Mr. James Dean, I first would like to thank Lori Pohl with LSI, who's part of the PTAC team, as authorized by PTAC. We asked her to take the lead on this and do the coordination of it. And as always, Lori did a wonderful job. So Lori, and to your team, thank you very much. Well, it's my privilege and honor to introduce our speaker today, Mr. James Dean, but his friends and colleagues know him by JD. And JD is the director of the small business programs for Hill Air Force Base. JD is responsible for establishing policy for the complex's small business and source development programs. He also serves as the liaison between the Air Force and other federal agencies, state and local organizations, and industry on all aspects of the Air Force's operations as they relate to the Air Force Small Business Program. JD's career also includes multiple assignments for supply and logistics and contracting, while serving as active duty in the United States Air Force. So we'd like to welcome our friend and colleague, JD, and JD, we'll turn the time over to you.
Thanks, Chuck. So welcome to the war room of the small business office, as my wife calls it, because I've got a TV over here, my personal computer, laptop, too many monitors go by, but she was thrown for a loop this morning when I showered. She thought I had a date. So I guess this isn't your day to shower. What are you doing? But thanks, Chuck, for getting me going. So let's see, go ahead and we'll hit the next slide there. There we go. And again, all Air Force briefings start with a purpose. Our purpose is to conduct outreach for small businesses to expand the meeting demands of the Air Force mission and supporting the warfighter. Next. So an overview of what I'm going to go over today. The Air Force portfolio, AFSC portfolio. Got a few diagrams of what we all touch as far as who we support. The role of the small business office. I think it's a big piece of understanding how we interact with our customers and the business community. What your role is as a small business, of how to get in those doors, which rolls into how to do business with the Air Force, how you affect acquisition strategy, some of the tools that we use, how to find some of our requirements, other activities that we support, and org chart. Before I go on, the org chart will include the three other small business specialists that work in the small business office at Hill. They're probably online, you know, Alicia Caldwell, Kathy Weiser, and Tracy Behringer. So we're a team. Next slide. So when we're talking AFSC is the Air Force Sustainment Center. We're realistically the 3 Air Force depots doing program depot maintenance on weapon systems, not just aircraft, but weapon systems. So this slide here depicts it in different colors. So Hill as the Ogden Air Logistics Center touches everything. It's in blue. Now we don't do the base support for Malmstrom Air Force Base, but we do a lot of the Minuteman missile things that happen up there. So we're not responsible for every aspect of these bases, but this is what they touch. So Tinker has a satellite down in Pensacola. Robbins has a couple things. And then the scow, and that goes in the next slide of what they actually touch. But so occasionally you'll see an acquisition come out of the Air Force Sustainment Center that actually is in support of Davis Monthan. But we have a group down there that handles the boneyard and all the regeneration of aircraft off the boneyard. So that so just because it doesn't say Hill Air Force Base that the support's happening in these other locations doesn't mean it's not coming through our office. Next slide. So the same colors shown on the last slide translate into this slide. So, you know, obviously I'm going to focus on Ogden Air Logistics Center, what we have here at Hill Air Force Base. But if you're wondering who does C-130 work, you know, you can. This slide shows that C-130 depot work is done out of Warner Robins in Georgia. But Ogden, you know, we have the depot maintenance for the F-16s, A-10s, F-22s, F-35s, T-38s, which is actually done down at Randolph, and then ICBM. It also shows C-130s here, but we do the depot maintenance on the Navy C-130s, not the Air Force C-130s. We also have, each location has their specialty. One of our specialties is landing gear here. We do all the landing gear for all airframes in the Air Force. Oklahoma City does all engines. So we even though we have the F-16 depot here, we don't touch the F-100 engines that go in those. That happens out of Oklahoma City. All three have deployable field teams. So these are teams that take mechanics out to the field and do overhauls for aircraft that we can't get into the depot, that have to be done in place and can't be flown in. A lot of our stock numbers that we put on aircraft are managed by supply chain, but a lot of the repair is actually done within the depot. So when you talk about 91,000 exchangeables, we're talking about actually, you know, units that can be repaired, get shipped back from the field and sent back to a depot. So at Hill, we manage 91,000 stock numbers for the exchangeable program. And then along with that, each of the three have a software component. Obviously, we don't do anything without software. In fact, the F-35 is just a flying software platform. Don't tell them I said that, because it's they take a Lockheed will take offense to that. But we do a lot of operational flight planning, the mission planning, the testing that goes into those test sets for those exchangeables. So it's all intertwined. So when we talk about software, you know, we're not buying Adobe. We're buying operational flight programming. That when we do a change on an aircraft, we have to change the software to go with it. So it's a lot of legacy type stuff that we do organically. Next slide. So the supply chain. Supply chain is obviously huge. Everything that we put on an aircraft or on weapon systems is managed by a stock number. Excuse me. So the supply chain management wing is the wholesale version of that. The supply chain wings, and then there's groups that each ALC handles the buying of the carcasses or the parts, and then the contract repair of certain items. So we're the ones that the supply chain wing. They're the ones that actually go out, buy it, and make a serviceable asset and get it out to the field. Now the field is on the right side of the slide, which is the supply chain operations wing. They're the ones that distribute it to a base that may need it and put it on their shelf. So the supply chain management wing manages at the wholesale level. Supply chain operations wing manages at the retail level. I can go in this slide forever, but it confuses me sometimes. So if you have any pointed questions about how the supply chain works, holler at me. Next slide. So when we talk about the wholesale and the supply chain, because that's what normally we do at the depots, it's broken up into what we do at Robbins, Hill, and Tinker, and also Tinker. Now Tinker has two supply chain manager groups, but they also have a business sector that helps that. So This slide here actually talks to within the supply chain groups, who handles what. So if you want to work on support equipment, or you go provide stuff for support equipment, you would use this chart and say, hey, that's handled out of Robins Air Force Base in Georgia, and that's where you would focus. If you want to do ICBM work, obviously Hill's the only one that does ICBM work. If you have anything to do with engines, you have to go to Tinker for engine stuff. So it's a busy slide, but it might narrow down your search of what you're looking for. Next. So again, focusing on what was here at Hill. Within the 748 Supply Chain Management Group, there are 5 squadrons that specialize in what they do. They're listed on the left there. ICBMs, space and what we call it, space and command and control, which is a lot of radar systems and the test range stuff. Then we have aircraft, then we have landing gear and secondary power. So again, it further breaks down who does what. Now those numbers for the historic buy and repair budgets for Hill Air Force Base, obviously, there's some big dollars, $296 million in buy, $332 million in contract repair. And then the organic repairs, what was on the other slide, where the depot was actually managing their own stock numbers and repairing things themselves. Now we're going through a year coming up where FY21, the working capital fund for supply chain is being cut by more than half. We're still trying to figure out what they're going to focus on. But again, they're trying to balance the budget when it comes to working capital funds, and it seems like they've been overextended for a while. So they're trying to fix things budget-wise. That's going to put them in a world of hurt if they decide to buy the incorrect things and put them on the shelf, and then we end up needing to go out and buy the other things that go on aircraft. So they're going through a lot of data crunching and analysis on that kind of stuff. Next slide. Now the Air Base Wing, the other component of the Air Force Sustainment Center, these are the people that own the base. So we have an Air Base Wing here at Hill Air Force Base. They have one at Tinker, one at Robins. But they're the ones that have the common use that any normal base would have. The construction, the facilities, the infrastructure, the personnel, the security, the comptroller. So this is for lack of a better term, these are the people that own the base. They're the mayor of the base. Everybody else works on their base. So a lot of our IT, common IT, and then construction, that kind of stuff falls under the Air Base Wing. Next slide. All right, so that's a snapshot of the AFSC piece. I'll go further into some of the tenant units we have on base later on. But we're going to transition into what the role of the small business office here. So, and Chuck has heard me, and everybody's heard me say this many times, our prime directive is to make sure that Air Force acquisitions make it in the appropriate program. But by what I mean by appropriate program is, our customers have acquisitions, they have requirements. It's on them to do the market research to find out what market share can do that work or provide that asset. So if they do their market research and then try to tell our office, well, we couldn't find any smalls that can do this, so we're going to go out full and open. Well, we're the check valve to make sure that they did their due diligence of market research to make that determination, because it's our job to sell it to the SBA, because we have to tell the SBA what we're doing. So to facilitate all that, we get involved early in their acquisitions. We make sure that they do their RFIs or sources sought. We're on the acquisition strategy panels to make sure that they did their due diligence in the market research piece to help determine if it could be a small business set aside. Again, that's our prime directive to make sure it makes it into the appropriate program. If it's something that should be full and open, hey, I'm not there to make it into a small business program just because I'm the small business office. We've got to make sure that it's the right acquisition for the right requirement. So again, that's 90% of our job, making sure that our acquisition personnel, we're talking contracting, program managers, requirements folks, are doing the right things to make sure that they're doing the U.S. policy of, if it's a small business friendly acquisition, we're going to set it aside for small business. Next piece is counseling contractors. Again, being COVID lockdown, we have had very little interaction face to face with a lot of our contractors. Usually it's a revolving door through our office of people want to do business on Hill Air Force Base and give us capability briefs. We've been doing those capability briefs virtually. We've been getting them, putting them in a database / SharePoint that we manage so that our customers can review things. But there are, contractors that call us, and we actually are the first line of defense. To be honest, we've got to make sure that what you sell, we buy, or that you're set up to sell to the government. Because if you're not, guess what? I call and let our friends at the PTAC, who do such a great job of getting people ready to do business with the government. So again, our job isn't to teach small businesses how to do that. I don't want to cross into Chuck's domain. That's his job. Our job is to make sure that we're focused in the right areas. And then last on this slide is, I mentioned before, we handle the interaction liaison between us and the SBA to tell them what our acquisition strategy is. Because even if I agree with it or our team agrees with it, the SBA might still have questions like, really, did you really do this? Or did you write the requirement in a way that smalls can't do it? So the SBA gets the final blessing on that before we go out for acquisition. Next slide. Outreach. Again, part of our outreach is to show people what we buy and what kind of things we buy, and try and get people to expand our industrial base, right? Because to be quite honest, the small business office is not about small business, it's about competition. Now, it's euphoria for me if it becomes a small business competition. But realistically, I need to increase competition at all levels. I need to take things away from large OEMs if it's become small business friendly now, or I just need to add more sources to something that only larges in the past have competed against. Competition is what drives it. That's why our small business numbers over the last 5 years have gotten so big as far as small business participation. I think technology and really the ability of small businesses to perform a lot of things that they couldn't before has really expounded. So we've seen a lot of acquisitions go to the small business route. Education, internal and external. This is external for me, but internal, we're one-on-ones with the contracting officers, the program managers, the policy-making folks on base, the commanders, to understand what the small business program is about and what their responsibilities are. We also have a source development piece, which only happens at the 3 depots. So if you call Mountain Home Air Force Base and say, hey, I want to talk to your source development specialist, they won't know what you're talking about. Our source development specialists are tied to the supply chain because if there are parts on an aircraft, we just don't go down to Walmart to buy replacement screws for the F-16. They've got to be from approved sources who have approved manufacturing and who have approved first articles. That's where the source development comes into play. So if there are items on there, and we have a whole different presentation on source development type items, which the SASPO gives, and the PTAC always hosts. I believe it's in the spring every year, of the supply chain and their requirements of getting developed sources. But there's also, we'll have some touch points on websites where you go to, what we're looking for, that type of thing. And then also we track our goals. We know what the expenditures are. We know how much went to small business. So those are the report card of how well we're actually meeting small business policy. Next slide. So to the role of the small businesses. This is a new slide. I stole this from my boss out at Tinker because she would go out and says, hey, this is what you guys need to do. that's like, hey, that's great, because that's really what we need to make sure that you're armed with the right information to come forward. Educate yourself on who's buying and selling what. And these are all aspects that I always relied on the PTAC to teach small businesses how to do, because we are not experts on this. Because beta.sam, which used to be fpds.gov, and then USA Spending, we're not experts in this. I know what we bought last year, but as far as federal spend overall and who's bought what, those are the kind of things that they get out of those reports. So knowing where to target, knowing that the PTAC's there to assist things. I get on my soapbox all the time for these companies that want to come in and help small businesses and charge them a fee to do so. It's like, we have organizations that are chartered to do this and funded by the state and the DoD to do so. So utilize your PTAC as much as you can. Learn the acquisition language, which is something the PTAC talks about. Strategic contracts. So you need to understand how the government buys some things. When we talk about strategic contracts, we're talking GSA vehicles, or if it's more focused on how we buy IT laptops and desktops. There's strategic vehicles out there. So if if you want to sell government laptops, that's not going to happen unless you go through one of these strategic contract vehicles, which is huge. But it's for synergy and make sure everybody's on the same page of what we get, pricing on economies of scale. So there are reasons why there are some strategic contracts in place. The beta.sam.gov is our point of entry, how to look for things. But the last piece here, sending the capabilities to statements to the SBOs. So that's, to me, we share a database between us, Tinker and Robbins, since we all buy similar type items, because we want our customers, our program managers, our contracting officers to be able to, if they need to find sources for a certain process, who can do hardening chrome processes. We want to be able to start off the market research by looking at those kinds of things and let them reach out. So we maintain that between the three of us, and schedule one-on-one meetings. We're the first ones that are going to be blunt enough with you to say, hey, yeah, I know that's what you sell, but that's not really what we buy or how we buy it. We've got a lot of machine shops here in Utah that really want to do machine shop work. Well, we don't buy machine shop stuff. We buy end items. There's another process. You need to get to the drawings and actually buy the end items. We don't just sub out machine shop work, if that makes sense. Next slide. This is a very busy slide, and that's, you guys will get the slides, but there's also, this is on our website out at Tinker. You can download this. This has a lot of the links on, who to contact in the Air Force AFSC small business in our office. How do you determine what your FSC codes are? How, what NAICS codes are we buying? Your USA Spending. A lot of the stuff that the PTAC does such a great job of giving you the groundwork on. The Air Force and the OSBP, the DoD Small Business Office, helped to formulate some of this stuff to help be another cheat sheet for you guys to use if needed. And I'm not going to walk through this whole process because it's daunting. Next slide. So how do you affect small business acquisition strategies? Like I said earlier, and what the role of our small business office is to make sure it finds the appropriate program. Well, when I digest a market research report, I've got to see what the government did to look for competition and who responded, and how did the government evaluate those responses. So if there's a detailed acquisition out there that sent out RFI and you responded with your capabilities brief, but didn't tailor it to that acquisition, there's not a lot of solace I can put into that, because you didn't address the requirement that the government has. Now, I truly understand that it costs money to sit there and revamp a response to an RFI. Totally understand that, but you need to be able to give the government enough information to help them make a decision if it can be a small business, or maybe the RFI is saying, hey, we're going sole source, and you're a small business says, no, we can do that. You need to be able to show that. So those requests for informations. The one time I will step in, especially when small businesses reach out to us, is to turn around and they're saying they're asking for way too much information. It's almost like they're looking for a down select criteria. Well, that's 100% a valid question. So if that's a question, bring it to our attention so we can address that with the requirements folks and the contracting officer to find out what do they really need, as opposed to asking for everything. So the request for information, again, a lot of the requests for information are the government still trying to develop requirements. And then they transition to a sources sought synopsis, where we know what the requirement is. Now we got a sources sought. Now you've got to respond to those as well. You know, we know what we want. So who's going to provide that information? And then industry days, outreach events. Again, a lot of these have been virtually lately, but when we have industry days, that's your time to network with other folks, maybe team with larges, or if you're priming, you know, to get teammates with you. But those are the networking opportunities out there to get known what we do. Even if something is going full and open, for a full and open competition, so everybody can bid on it. So if it's full and open, you can still bid on it as a small. You just don't have to follow limitations of subcontracting. But at these industry days, you know, that also gives us an idea of how much of the work of a big program a small business can do. Because at the same time we formulate evaluation criteria to determine who's going to do it for the Air Force, we're also working on determining what the appropriate small business subcontracting percentages are going to be for that contract. So if you are a supplier to what was ATK, now Northrop, and you know that they are going to get a big contract, I need to know what you provide them so that, you know, we can make sure that they are subbing to smalls where it makes sense. The next line here, I said, talk to your capabilities, not your business size. I usually gear this towards the 8As. We get 8As that come in or hub zones that say, I'm a hub zone. I want to do work for you. That doesn't really give my requirements folks a lot of warm fuzzies of why they need to go with you. You need to talk to your requirement, your capabilities, and how you can satisfy a requirement. And then say, and by the way, I'm a hub zone, or I'm a service disabled vet, or I'm a small business. That's a secondary as opposed to leading up front. The next one, let your government know your intentions when you respond to these. If you go a prime or if you're going to be a sub, I already talked about how we determine what the skill sets and percentage of smalls work can be afforded. Keep your profiles up to date, especially in the dynamic small business search. We've finally gotten a lot of our users using that as a search to start market research in addition to our capability briefs. So if you're in the dynamic small business search and you have no keywords in there, they're not going to find you. It's as simple as that. Next slide. Again, dynamic small business search. I even talk to larges when they call me and say, hey, we need to find some smalls to help work on a project for me. I really don't play favorites. Here's dynamic small business search, and go look for, unless I know somebody can fulfill a requirement for them. I give these to the largest too. Go look on the dynamic small business search, see what you're looking for and who meets your criteria. And then the last piece, the repository, that's where we keep our capability briefs. It's on an Outlook RSS feed, so all 3 of our locations can do queries on it and bring up your capabilities brief. Next slide. So how do you find AFSC requirements? So the Air Force Sustainment Center, I hate to say it because I hate beta.sam. I didn't even like, fedbiz.oz, but at least we knew what was coming. But the easiest way I've found to find our requirements at the locations, I've put it down there of how the DODACs are equated to. So a normal base like Mountain Home Air Force Base up in Idaho has one DODAC. And a DODAC is the first 6 positions of their solicitation or RFP or whatever. They have one buying organization, and that is their DODAC. So at Hill, we have 27 DODACs. The same goes with the other areas. So to differentiate between us and somebody else, all of our DODACs start with FA82. So if it's operational contracting, it's FA8201. If you're looking for A10 contracting, it's FA8210. But everything at Hill Air Force Base starts with an FA82. And so that goes along with Warner Robins and Tinker. They have 81 and 85. We also have our DODAC list actually on our website there. But again, if you have questions or having trouble deciphering who does what, give us a holler. Next slide. Excuse me. Some of the ones I know of right off the bat that are going on right now for acquisitions within AFSC, the MAC. The MAC is our multiple award construction contract. These are larger construction contracts that we compete. We usually award 3 or 4. Sometimes as little as 2, but I have to see what the RFP says right now of how much they propose. Sometimes there's a cut, sometimes there's not a cut, a fine cut, and we have more than 2 or 3. But they're 5-year contracts, and as opposed to every time we have a construction project on base and posting on FedBiz or beta.sam and doing a site visit for the whole world and everything, we set up IDIQs. This is one of those strategic vehicles we talked about. So the winners of these will be like the 3 or 4 that'll do the job site and bid against specific jobs on base. Now we do have a current list of current contract holders, and if you're an electrician, guess what? You're not going to be, a MAC contract holder unless you become the contractor that is going to handle the whole ball of wax. But we have a list of who the current contract holders are, and if you want to sub to them, we have points of contact for them to reach out to them. The next thing is a SABRE. That's a Simplified Acquisition Base Engineering construction contract. These are our smaller construction contracts that are historically like renovations of offices or workspaces or quick fixes of small buildings. This is going out, and it's a regional 8A set aside. So instead of every company 8A in the world wanting to bid on our construction projects here at Hill Air Force Base, the SBA and Hill has determined that this makes more sense to have a regional 8A set aside. So to be qualified for this, you have to be an 8A contractor with a bona fide office in the state of Utah at the time of proposal. So that draft RFP is going out next week. And historically, since that's an 8A, those 8As are the ones that get enough, I would say, past performance once they graduate that they try and get on the next MAC contract, which is a small business set aside. So we use the SABRE as to get smaller construction contractors the experience and the depth of work to qualify them for larger projects within the DoD. Point of use is coming up. It should be RFP. It's full and open. Point of use is we have a lot of point of use machines for consumables within the depot. So when they need more drill bits at a certain workstation they just don't go through an ordering process, or they don't go to somebody's desk drawer. They go to a vending machine and punch in their code, and they get what they need out of that. That has always been a full and open requirement. Even though smalls could probably run the acquisition as far as, keeping them filled and backfilling the logistics of it, it is actually deemed a supply contract, because that's what we spend our money on, is supplies. And I can't make it a small business set aside, because smalls don't make everything that we need in those requirements. So it goes full and open. But if those are opportunities if you want to get in with, I think currently Fastenal has the contract, but it's going out for RFP. So if there's somebody out there you want to team with that does the logistics for that kind of stuff, that's who you would target. Age is our aerospace ground equipment. It's a small business set aside. It's repair and overhaul of our lidalls or generators, the stuff we use on the flight line. Special mission support is an 8A set aside. It's always been an 8A direct award. A lot of people haven't known about this because it's always been an 8A direct award. Well, the size has made it has grown to the point where it can't be a direct award anymore. So we're going to go 8A competitive on it. So they're working on an act plan. So if you be looking out for that, if that's in your wheelhouse. And ops is a operational planning and scheduling contract. We do a lot of scheduling of the program depot maintenance and how they get things through the depot. Their IDIQs, it's always been a small business set aside, and some manpower type stuff. Yeah, Chad from Tom Gerke, who has the current Sabre contract. There's the current Sabre contract. I happen to have that list here. There are three on it. So there's a joint venture between W4 and DMS, Rio Vista, and Farah Construction. Are the three construction companies that own the current Sabre contract. Next slide. So what I've talked about realistically is that first three lines up there next to the Air Force Sustainment Center patch that talks about the ALCs, the Air Base Wing and Supply Chain. So at each of the locations, we have program offices as well. So if you need to reach out to the C5 program office, this chart will tell you, hey, C5 program office is out at Robbins. We can help you get in contact with them. Now the program offices, they don't do the work, they don't do the depot work on it, but they do modifications. If it's not just fixing something, but they're actually modifying, upgrading a radar system, the program offices are the ones that put the acquisitions out for upgrading those types of parts. If they're just buying spare parts, that's supply chain. So it's a matter of what they have coming in and going out. A lot of these program offices manage a lot of FMS assets for our FMS partners out there. So just a quick snapshot, who does what. Nuke Weapons Center obviously is headquartered down at Kirtland, but we do the ICBM sustainment and now the GBSD research development up here at Hill. I believe Nuke Weapons Center has a piece out at Tinker. Oh. Let me check on the blocks here. Question regarding personal care products like hair sanitizer, soaps. Does AFSC have to do anything selling the commissary BX, or is that a different program? So that's a different program altogether, because that's not a appropriated fund buy. So that is through AFES or DECA for the commissaries. And that's those points of contact. I know that the PTAC has, because they've had those people come out and give briefings for those things, but I don't see any of those acquisitions because it's not appropriated money. So down towards the bottom of this, it talks about our results. Again, between the three bases for FY20, we did $13.4 billion in spend that was eligible and then 1.75 billion of that went to small businesses. And that broke it down. So Hill Air Force Base, of the $4.1 billion we spent at Hill Air Force Base, $512 million went to small businesses here at Hill Air Force Base. Okay, next slide. So the small business organization itself. So again, we're all tied together at the hip. So we have Robbins on the left, Tinker, which is our mothership out of Oklahoma, is in the middle. So Miss Tracy Nicholson is over all three of our locations, but she runs her own shop there at Tinker. And then here on the right is myself, Kathy, Tracy, and Alicia. Again, we're all teleworking, but right now we have all of our numbers actually transferred to our home. So if you need to reach out and touch us, feel free. And next slide. Okay, so I saw another question pop up, but I'm going to open up to everybody else. Let's see. Workforce development. Okay, from Star Support, there's a question about workforce development, leadership development assessments for Travis and Gunner, provide a Hill. I guess, and again, I can't even pretend I know all the organizations and what they're responsible for. But the workforce development, is it put on by the FSS squadron, or is it the training piece at those two bases? Because we do have a training element, and I guess that'll be, if you shoot me an email, I can get you in contact with the training manager at Hill Air Force Base, and maybe they'd be better at ask those questions. They do have some contracts in place for some classes they get developed. So for Star Support, send us an email and let us get back to you with who you can reach out on the training area. Hopefully that gets to it, because each organization can't go out and get their own training. They have to go through it. All right, from Dean Morton. Do you utilize Oasis contract vehicle? We do. So historically, we used to use a design engineering support contract that we put on locally at Hill as an multiple award IDIQ for engineering services. That expired last year or the year before. I had 27 contractors, that type of thing. So that office actually uses the Oasis contract to handle some of those requirements. So they do the same thing that the DSP office used to do. Taking the requirement, help the requirements owner get a package ready for an RFOP out to the contract holders. So they do, and I have the same arrangement with them. Our job is to make sure it's in the appropriate program. So if we use Oasis, they have to do the market research on Oasis to see if I can put it in the small business pools of Oasis or not. So I do have an office dedicated for engineering, AFSC engineering services that fit that requirement. They use Oasis if they can. Oh, somebody's, let's see here. Just going to give you, somebody's asking for our email address. I was going to, rather than give you mine, I was going to give you the offices. That way, one of any three of us will jump on that. Let's see. So that should be our box number, but if that doesn't work, feel free to send it to me. There's my email address. All right, I'm scrolling up to make sure I didn't miss a question. Email address. Oh, I got one from Bodex. New 8A in Utah. Want to conduct capabilities brief at Hill. How would we reach you? There you go, Summit. There's my email address. Send me your capabilities brief. Let me see what you do. Ideally, if I can narrow down who your target audience is, I'd love to get a conference call or something with our customer, because realistically, the small business office doesn't buy anything. But if I can figure out who your customer is, I'd love for you to give your capabilities brief to them as well. So start off by sending us your capabilities brief to one of those, to the box there. There's Alicia. Thank you, Alicia. Yeah, so disregard the first AFSC one I put in there. Alicia put the correct one in there. These ladies always take care of me. Thank you.
So earlier you briefly mentioned machine shops, and I'm a welding and fabrication service provider. So am I in the same boat as a machine shop? You made it sound like it's difficult to provide services to the base.
Well, it's not difficult, but you have to find out what you can provide for them, because they don't come out and say, hey, I need a welder, or I need this welded together. It's usually an end item that we're buying. So
what's a good way to find those type of contracts?
I don't have a good answer for that, because I don't think that they come out and saying, hey, we need this welded. They come out with a part, and once the person that manufactures that part just determines they needed something welded to make that work, that's when they reach out to welders. But you know what, follow up with an email to me. Let me see if I can send something to the depot and see if they have another vehicle they use, if they do send something out. The reason I use the machine shop analogy is because the depot is the largest machine shop in Utah.
Right.
And I'm sure we have a lot of organic welding capability as well. But let me reach out to the depot folks, POCs I have, and see if there is anything out there that they do outside of what they do in-house. So let's try and do that.
JD, this is Chuck. I'm wondering if there isn't any opportunities for these machine shops as subcontractors to primes who may have contracts with Hill. What's your view on that?
Well, there is, but they're ones that usually have to run out and find their own subs, right? But I don't know which ones if they decide to make a part, if they need to try and find a sub to go with that. That's just too big of a net to cast. So let me first focus on trying to see if they do anything outside of the normal in-house welding. If we can send that to the depot POC I have, and go from there.
Okay. Yeah. The reason I'm here is that I've actually had an experience in the past where I welded something for the base through somebody else. So I know that the work is out there somehow. Right. I welded up some aluminum trunnions for you guys to, I think it was to roll the cages on the F-22s or something. So. Okay. Anyway, I'll shoot you an email. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Hey, not a problem, Jake.
Hey, I've seen some at the base level welding opportunities, not necessarily at Hill, but I remember up in Montana, you know, they whether it be stairs or railings or things like that, that was coming out of like architectural engineering stuff.
Right. Yeah. So
Base
yeah. So CE would go out, especially out of a base like that. Now, being in such a rich resource base as Hill, and again, just like we're the largest machine shop in the Utah in the state, we probably have a lot of welding capabilities too.
Right.
I mean, that's not what we need. But if but our contracts in that case probably wouldn't be to repair a stairwell. It would probably be a construction project to refurnish um, or redo something, and that would be an addition to. And then the construction firm would go out and find somebody to help weld it if they couldn't do it themselves. And there's another piece of this that I never see. That's why I want to send this out to the depot. Is because the micro purchase threshold for a user to use a government credit card is up to $10,000 now. So I don't see anything that's under $10,000 because that gives our customers the ability to go out there. Now they have to do some competition, they have their own files they have to worry about. So that's why I wanted to reach out to the depot and see how they do the welding, because for it to reach over the $10,000 threshold for a welding job, I wouldn't see. I got a question from, okay. So so in reading this from Mickey or Mikey, one of the two, about a commercial cleaning organization that does construction cleaning, tile grout, that kind of stuff. So our custodial on base is run by Ability One. So it used to be NIMNISH. So that's all of our custodial work is only goes to Ability One contractors, which is our the old NIMNISH severely handicapped program. So it's a competing program against small business. So I can't talk bad about it. It's just another program. But Mick, if you want to send us your capabilities brief on that, maybe that'll be I can send that to our construction folks, that when somebody says I need a bathroom renovation because this is terrible, maybe they can talk them into a more cost-effective solution as opposed to just putting in a new bathroom. That would be, so yeah, I could get that to our construction folks, but they're the ones that would have to get it out to try and sell them. Send what statement? So get with your PTAC and talk about a capability statement.
Folks, do we have any other questions for JD?
Well, again, I wish this would have taken place in person. I mean, I enjoy getting to run around and shake everybody's hands, switch business cards and take some literature and stuff like that. But we're electronic, and now we do what we can for now. You've got our email addresses. If any questions come up after the fact, feel free to shoot them to us. Again, if we can find you a customer, great. If we can send you down the right path, great. But don't take offense if I says, yeah, we don't buy banana bread through appropriated funds, so I can't sell it for you. I'm not part of your business development team. I'm here to help you.
Okay, Joshua, is there any other questions that you've seen come in the last few minutes before we wrap up?
Just about distribution of the slides and recording. And yes, these will be made available to everyone who registered shortly after the event, sometime either later today or tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Well, if there's no other questions, we're going to wrap this up. We'd like to thank everyone for your participation today. Very good questions. JD did a wonderful job at explaining the role that his office plays in the small business there at the Logistics Center at Hill. He showed you some opportunities that are upcoming. I just want to highlight them again. We have the MAC contract, which was posted on November 17th. The SABRE contract draft is going to be posted this week. The point of use contract is coming out sometime in December this month. And the aerospace ground equipment draft RFP, again, coming out this December. So these are the type of opportunities you want to interact with the JD and his staff on. As they, as he mentioned and did a great job, his role is to help develop the acquisition and get that acquisition out in the form of a solicitation, which is found on contract opportunities in SAM. And then PTAC's role is to help you with that solicitation, to help you with putting together a capabilities briefing, to help you understand the FAR regulations. And we have a plethora of staff and resources that can help you with that. So that is PTAC's role. So with that, let me just thank JD for another wonderful presentation. He joked that it was going to last 5 minutes and it went almost an hour. So well done. And we will get these, this is going to be recorded and is being recorded, and we will get the slides to you. Joshua will handle that aspect of it. We also want you to know that PTAC is working on outreaches for 2021, and as we get that formulated and get a list put together, we'll get that out to you. So be looking for future emails from us on that. So with that, we'd like to wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays coming up. This year it will no doubt be different from years past, but there is light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccines that everyone has heard of. So I think we are getting much better at doing virtual presentations, but hopefully by a year's end, we'll be back to doing live and in person. So we wish you safe holidays and take care, and we'll see you in 2021. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.